I look at the Tristan Tzara piece on how to make a Dadaist poem. And of course, everybody remembers you take a newspaper, you take the scissors, you cut everything up, you cut out the words, you put it in a bag, you shake the bag, you take out the scraps, and you copy basically the randomness of what's, et cetera. And then he says, Tzara does, the poem will be like you. And then he says, and here's the line, and then hence my question for you all. And here you are, a writer meaning you've cut up some newspaper and put it in a bag. Here you are, a writer, infinitely original and endowed with a sensibility that is charming, though beyond the understanding of the vulgar. Okay, so my question for you, for some of you, is going to be, how do you explain infinitely original, the phrase infinitely original, in that line by Tzara? So I'm going to ask Gabby, Max, Erica, and Jerry to comment on Tzara's idea that after you did that incredibly unoriginal thing of taking newspaper clippings and making a poem, what does he mean when he says infinitely original? Gabby first.
Yeah, I think I would emphasize infinitely a little bit in that it feels like what we're sort of like talking about here is like iterating in the sense of like a given outcome of a particular procedure, and how like anybody who comes at this procedure, though it's very rigid and it has a sort of like a thing you always do with it, will always kind of come up with a different thing. And so there's just infinite possibilities from it. And I think what's like enjoyable and therefore kind of original is that, yes, you're not going from like language that you produced out of like some muse inside of your head coming out of it like Athena, but you did get somewhere that nobody else can get because of just the specific way you did this. So I think it is like infinitely original.
So Gabby, you're saying it's a totally unironic statement and true. The infinite part you explained, and originality, say again, how is it original? Because it's a permutation that's not going to be reproduced because there are too many variables.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it's because it's coming from your particular instances, the newspaper you have access to, the things you feel interested in, the sort of accidents of your particular setup.
Nice. Okay. Max, your thought on infinitely original, followed by Erica, followed by Jerry.
Well, I really like Gabby's understanding of this sentence here and doing and taking it at face value. But I wonder also if we should like think of this as really tongue in cheek. I mean, it's Tristan Tzara, it's the Dadaists. Like, I don't know if this is like supposed to be a pep talk for writers who are trying to be infinitely original. I think in some ways he's also sort of making fun of the idea of infinite originality. And I think that there's a sort of backdoor into a kind of like positive interpretation of this. So if he's sort of spoofing this this pressure that one feels in the literary market to produce something new, either because the literary market demands new texts, or because cultural critics in the 1920s need modernism and need something to be made new. In a way, he's maybe spoofing this feeling lots of writers perhaps are burdened with at this to produce something new. So in some ways, what he's by prescribing this process, he's almost getting away from this idea of originality. He's saying like, okay, maybe if you cut up newspapers and you recycle the words, you can produce infinitely new poems, but also maybe we shouldn't worry so much about originality, what constitutes originality, or this idea that literature will expand infinitely into more and new original places. Maybe something unoriginal is equally valid or equally interesting to create.
Yeah, that's very well said, Max. Really great, because you didn't contradict or negate what Gabby said about the unironic quality of that. You actually said that can be included in this idea of a new way of thinking about originality. Okay, great. So let's turn to Erica and then to Jerry on this question of Tzara.
I think, I feel like both Max and Gabby have said things that are similar to what I would say. And now I'm finding myself thinking about whether or not the unoriginal is in itself an originality. So, you know, like I read this moment as very close to something that's important to me from Cage about how, you know, by virtue of the person involved in cutting up the article and pulling the scraps and copying, you know, there is an element of originality that appears because of subjectivity and chance.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thank you. Jerry, your thought on this, the Tzara's idea of infinitely original?
Yeah, well, I think one has to take the irony into consideration. And it's, you know, Tzara is saying, if you want to be original, let me show you how to be original. You know, follow this procedure of cutting up the newspaper. The next time you do it, it'll be another newspaper. It'll be a different cut. The cutting, you know, marks will be different. You know, so original, infinitely original. And then many of us later on follow the procedure.
Yeah.
You know, cut-ups, Burroughs, Brian Geisen, you know.
Minutes to Go was the book of cut-ups by Geisen and Burroughs. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did that. And I'm just wondering whether Tzara followed up on that. You know, is it,
Do we know that Tzara actually made poems from cut-up or only wrote the instructions?
Only wrote the instructions there. And
that's original.
You know, and I can't think of a Tzara poem
Yeah.
following those procedures.